everything that exists outside of you, you created. So when we were thinking about moving abroad and changing the team and changing our offers and, recreating our life, and we looked around and we had a great life, it was like, yes, and we built that. For us, when we were making that decision, that was a big thing we rested on as well. It was like, we don't know what other possibilities there are, but we do know that we've done this here and we can do this anywhere. Like, that's a skill set that we've created.
Briony and Dalaney, welcome to the show. How are you guys?
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Yeah,
and
excited to be here.
To my home.
Yeah, so good. So
the
good.
home studio.
We're behind the scenes of what you see,
It truly is magical.
So, speaking of magical, you guys are from New Zealand. My mom is from New Zealand, and that's magical in and of itself. But we all found our way here to Portugal. So for you guys, I know you've been on this journey, and I think it was this last year where you guys kind of hit a new stride. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about what had to happen internally before anything happened externally.
Yeah, I think when we're in the daily routines of life, it's so easy to just get caught up in what you always do. And when we decided to move abroad, there was definitely all those concerns that you mentioned around, we had a great setup in New Zealand, we had a great community. And I think sometimes we forget that we created that. And that's the first thing, like everything that exists outside of you, you created. So when we were thinking about moving abroad and changing the team and changing our offers and, recreating our life, and we looked around and we had a great life, it was like, yes, and we built that. Therefore, we can also build it in the new places, right? New places, definitely new challenges. And I remember landing in Europe and getting back to those basics. Like I said today, like how did we grow in New Zealand? We did a lot of networking things. We created community. Like, let's do that again, right? So it's sometimes I think we forget how far we've come and the skills we've acquired. And it's not necessarily all the things you've acquired outside of you, but those internal skills you've built. And a lot of people fear losing what's good, but it's like, you still built that. You can build that anywhere. So I think that's like, for us, when we were making that decision, that was a big thing we rested on as well. It was like, we don't know what other possibilities there are, but we do know that we've done this here and we can do this anywhere. Like, that's a skill set that we've created. Yeah.
For me, the expansion came from leaving New Zealand, was realizing how many ceilings we had hit in terms of not only business size, team size, the types of events we could attend, the types of people we were around. I found like almost all areas of life had almost peaked. And that for me was a big red flag that you are now, you're the most interesting person in the room, so you should get in a new room in a way, to find some cliche thing to connect it to that made me change. But realizing that was a big one, and wanting to then be the smallest fish in the room again, wanting to be around mentors and people playing way bigger games than us, both in business and in life, and lifestyles that we were inspired by, like yourself, traveling with your family, moving abroad, doing your business online. All of that stuff was like, for in New Zealand, we were so weird at being that. So for us to become, for us to leave and then find people doing similar things in a bigger scale, that was probably the biggest desire and motivator for me personally.
Was it interesting so I'm not want to project, so I'm going to ask you guys a question, but it's like, I started to say I had a global brand, shortly after I came here. No, before I came, it never crossed my mind. Mm-hmm. Even if I might have gotten a client from outside of the United States where I'm from, but it was now I'm in Europe, and I started to see myself like, I've got clients here, I've got clients here, I got clients. I'm a global brand.
Yeah.
And there's something about that kind of shifts inside you too. Did you guys experience that?
Yeah, for sure. For me, it was also like having an international team. Like, you realize, like, we had people from New Zealand, Australia, since then, Georgia, Serbia. Like, it's realizing, you're touching all these parts of the planet, right? And of course, I think there's a center and an energy about wherever you go, you create a bit of a field around. But it is a realization that, you're reaching all these new parts. And interestingly for us, when we moved to Europe, it was also finding, not changing who we were, but doubling down on more about, because we had this concern, New Zealand culture is a very specific type of culture. And we wondered what would translate. And we quickly found within maybe 3 or 4 months of being in Europe, We resonated with Sweden, Denmark, Germany, UK. Like there was parts of Europe that really loved the Untapped brand. And we were like, oh, this is cool. So again, that was realizing like you can reach further and you do resonate, like there are other countries, depending on your brand and your style that will resonate and fit into it. So it was really cool. And starting to see our community grow, like our online community, and just this diversity and people from all over, and then some similarities. And it was pretty awesome. Yeah.
We celebrate with our clients as well. The second they get a client that's not from their country, you're officially an international.
As you should.
As you claim it,
And this is something that, it's those little road markers that even as you're starting your business, we rarely take time to like pause and like look how far we've come. Look what we've learned. Look what we've overcome, and some of those challenges. I know with Untapped, your brand, you guys help a lot of your clients with this concept of, working through the fears, working through belief systems, working through scarcity, and, much akin to what we do as well. For you guys, what are some of the things that you help your clients with that in those moments, the mirror like shined pretty bright back at you?
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories to kind of summarize what we do in a way that brings both Briony and I together and how we do it is, I remember the very first seminar Briony and I attended together. It was one of the landmark institutions. And anyway, I had written maybe 30 pages of notes, like endless notes, like all the models, all the things, everything they shared. And I looked at Briony's notebook and she'd barely written a page. I was like, well, what are you doing? Why are you not writing things down? And she's like, oh, I'm just looking for their beliefs. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, all I need to know is their beliefs, and then what to do, how to do it, all that is secondary. It comes later. It comes easier. And that was my kind of epiphany of the magic that Briony and I bring together is I love the strategy, I love the doing, I love the models, and then Briony brings that mindset element to it. So in a way, it's bringing those two things together. I'm like, who is the person, what's the vision, right? Who do you need to become in order to fill that vision? What are the beliefs? What are the thoughts? And then what are the actions? Rather than the tips and tactics and this and that, it's like, who do you need to become in order to create the vision or the life that you want?
Yeah. This is something that nobody teaches in school. Nobody like examines like the fact that a lot of the challenges and hiccups we have in life are nothing more than a product of a really shitty belief system. Like how we were raised, what we're exposed to, what that, fourth grade teacher said to us and gave us a non-passing grade or like whatever. Like we built a story around that. We take that story, we place a judgment upon it. And then suddenly that becomes our like law of life.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't deserve, I'm not worthy, I don't have what it takes because of X, Y, and Z. And all of it is horseshit.
Yeah.
For you guys, what is like one of the like main core factors? Like someone comes in and you're kind of like, 101, let's talk about this.
Yeah. I think for me personally, like in my experience was really realizing that I was worthy of creating a lot of that. Well, first and foremost, it was that I was good enough. Like I could do it. There's people here, there, and everywhere doing these things. Like there's no reason I can't do it as well. So, and I had followed a really traditional blueprint of life. So that was terrifying for me to just kind of put myself out there and start creating things myself. But
and let's be clear, like you're a lawyer.
Yeah. So from corporate law, and I was going to share this kind of metaphor because it really helped me. I think a lot of us are talking about that box that we put ourselves in, and then we can't think of anything different. And I think one of the greatest kind of pieces of my journey was like the journey of reinvention. Like it really was not only just questioning, am I good enough? Am I worthy? That kind of came later. It was actually reconnecting to who on earth I was and what I wanted to build with my life in an authentic way, because my entire life was actually just a scaffold of who I thought I should be or who I was expected to be. So I end up in this perfect relationship with the apartment, being a lawyer, tick, 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 but then deeply unfulfilled, really not knowing who I was or what I wanted to build. And so it was before it was, am I worthy of all of this? It was actually a connection to who I am and my authentic vision and my values, and stripping away all the layers of who I thought I should be or what's expected of me. And I think everyone struggles with that. And I think, you know, women really do struggle with, even with a lot of those narratives of, well, oh, actually all of us do, but, you know, got to be, look like this, do this, perform this way. So that was awesome. And I think the, you know, the metaphor I always love was when Michelangelo created the statue of David, you know, he said, wow, what a beautiful masterpiece. This is like phenomenal. And how did you make it? And, you know, he said, I simply chipped away at everything that wasn't David, and David emerged. And I think human beings are kind of similar, as we want to change, but sometimes it's just an unearthing of like what's already there, a chipping away at all the conditioning so you can just be that most authentic self. And for me, that was when my life drastically changed. That's when I started doing the work I wanted to do, you know, coaching, facilitating. I met Dee. Dee was not a traditional model of who I thought I would end up with. Actually, he was totally different from... Well, it was totally different from all the people I had dated, or, you know, because they just mirrored the kind of, you know, mirrored what my dad was like. Dee was like this incredible, like an authentic vision of what I wanted, someone to travel with, co-create with, learn with. But that was scary. I didn't know people like that. I'd never seen a relationship like that. I didn't think I was even worthy of that. I actually, you know, a fear I had was, would that just be too much? You know, if we're super similar and we're bouncing off that energy, and we're, you know, maybe I do just need something really steady and stable. So I think that's a really important piece when people start that journey or come to us. It's like getting connected first to who they are and what they authentically want, not what they think they should want, not what they've consumed on social media, but actually what they want. Yeah. And that takes work, you know, and inside of that.
So you came out of like the crypto space. So was it fintech or in that arena? And now you've shifted to a completely different space. Like, what had to change in you to like first give yourself permission to step into a completely different space? And then two, that transfer of skills, the transfer of knowledge, knowing that you could reinvent in a different.
I actually praise my mother for the key to constant reinvention, because she did that in a way. Both my parents
Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Mom. Both my parents are entrepreneurs, so I was quite lucky in that regard. But she always reminded me of like, do whatever you want. Anything you do, all your skills will compound and they'll all connect and contribute to one another. So that was kind of my baseline mindset anyway. So when I tell people like some of the career paths I'm gone, they're like, how? You were so young. How have you had so many careers on so many different things? I was like, I just did whatever I wanted to. But to answer your question, it was actually a moment where I had exited a business. I was doing a whole bunch of accelerator program stuff, helping fintechs grow, and sitting across the table from a young female founder who just secured like a couple million in funding, which in New Zealand startup scene was like, oh my God, you're the next unicorn. And her whole personality, her whole persona completely changed. She was a super confident, super driven person, like ready to achieve. And the second there was like stakes, she crumbled. And leaving that meeting, whatever, through a series of sliding door moments that I call, you know, the movie where it take lots of little moments, ends up in different reality. I ended up sitting next to a woman at a dinner who ends up at the last minute inviting me to this seminar thingy mobile. And I was like, sure, whatever. I walked into a room, and that's when I locked eyes with this beautiful woman here, Briony McKenzie. And up until this point, I had learned so much. I'd studied psychology at university. I knew a lot, you know, but I was still stuck, you know. I realized at that point, like I thought knowing was the answer. I just learned more books, read more things, but I was still just trotting along. But anyway, in a big seminar, in a circle, and it was coming around to my turn to share, and I was going to share some bullshit around productivity or something. And then Briony locks eyes, and I just look at her and go, I don't feel worthy of love. And then in about 15 seconds, maybe it was like an hour, I don't know, Briony coached the shiitake mushrooms out of me. And I had such a shift and such a breakthrough that for me, like, this is the answer. And that's when I kind of went full swing pivot the other way and realized, like, I don't want to help South's funders secure more funding. I want to help these types of people. I want to help coaches and thought leaders who are incredibly gifted at what they do, but they often lack the marketing and sales skills involved. So for me, I've kind of dedicated my life to this industry because I believe this is how we truly make an impact, is one soul at a time and one coach and one thought leader at a time. So for me, it was that bridging the gap of what I've always wanted to do was have an impact with an interest I have, which is personal growth and mindset, into all your skills combined in a way. So in a nutshell, it's kind of inevitable, right? Like it combines my business, it combines my psychology, it combines my obsession with growth all into one sort of mashup. So Mum, you were right. It all compounds.
Thank you, Mom. So, so now I want to come into, this transition. An entrepreneur goes from playing amateur to playing pro, right? The shift. And this is that thing of expansion where you kind of have to do it intentionally. You don't necessarily trip into it. It's rare that someone should just suddenly figure it out.
Yeah.
What is that shift for you guys? What was it that made you like, here we go?
Yeah. Oh, I had a few layers to it. But I think some key things that come up is like the first layer was, you start delivering, facilitating, you start creating an impact. That's awesome. But it was actually going, it's okay and it's safe to be bigger than this and to go further. And for me, there was actually like being visible online, speaking your truth a little bit, holding a lot of space for like a bigger community. So it was actually feeling safe to have a bigger container that we were holding. The thing I hit up against on that was control. Because as you heard from a lot of my story, like my life was pretty organized, pretty planned. And the moment you decide to go pro or go further, you're actually taking on that things could get out of control. Things could get beyond your, let's say, not say out of control, beyond your control. Yeah. So the vulnerability for me there was it couldn't just be me anymore. And I knew that. I was like, if I really want to take this next level, I can't do it on my own. And my parents were divorced. I was a super independent kid. I went to boarding school. So a lot of my life I had done like on my own. And when it was about going pro, like I quickly saw this track I'm on hits an upper limit when it's just me. That's it. I'm not going to grow further. We're not going to grow the income. We're not going to have more people in our programs. That's it. And I remember sitting in my car. I was like literally bawling because I realized I want to make this massive impact. I want to go further. And this protective part of me that's kept me so safe and small, it's got to go. Like I've got to lead. I've got to build a team. I've got to outsource. I've got to let go. And that was, and I think everyone knows that logically around delegation and stuff. But when you come up against yourself, like I've got to literally let go and trust other people. That was huge. That was really big. And for me in terms of like transforming that and stepping into that, the motivation was the impact. It was like, well, this is going to be incredible. And the skills I had to learn management. I loved leadership, like building culture and enrolling people in the vision, but I was a really, really bad manager. I didn't know how to hire. I didn't know how to outsource, delegate. Like I was terrible. And I got that feedback well and truly, people like, we have no idea what we're meant to be doing. Like we're all here for it, but we literally don't know. So there was like a super steep learning curve. But there was a big change when we decided to actually go pro. It was really taking on a team, putting something at stake and learning and figuring out what that gap was. And it definitely took me a while and still does. Like, sometimes I still forget that I have help. Like that's still a pattern for me. It's like, oh, someone could help me do this. So it's been a training. I think at one point we
set up a Slack bot.
Yeah.
That would go off and send Briony a message, be like, ask Dalaney for help right now. Every day.
Practicing like, what could I get help with? What could I outsource? But the experience on the other side of people have got your back. People are looking after you. Thanks for your help. There's nothing better than seeing your impact and work occur without you being the one heavy lifting, doing it on your own. So for me, that was pretty cool going pro.
Okay. So I have to ask you, there were some nonverbals there as you were sharing all that. You were pulling away from the mic.
Yeah. Back away.
Is there still some resistance in that area?
Of course. Massive. Like I honestly, one of my biggest patterns with my team is like, I just take stuff back over or I forget to ask. Like I just forget to ask, hey, I actually need help with this. I feel one of the things we're creating, you know, I'm working with my coach on at the moment, one of the events that we're running soon. I said my possibility and my creation is not just that the room's full and it's going to be an amazing event. It's that I can show up and things are just going to be taken care of. Like, that's a new reality for me, to not be the one who had to do it or drive it. And so it's still something I'm working on, you know, like we've got a marketing person, we've got an admin person, we've got cleaners, we've got so much support. But for me to feel supported is still a constant practice.
I feel you. I feel you. So are you playing like Robin to Batman in this situation where you're like, hey, Briony, let go? Or like, are you having to help her navigate that?
I think
they'll step in is like, I'm taking this. Let go.
I think the wildest thing of Briony and I's, I'd call it our unfair advantage, is if you've ever done like the EOS integrator quiz, there's the integrator and the visionary. Briony and I are the perfect 100% of both together, but we're a terrible mashup of the, she's not fully visionary, I'm not fully visionary, she's not fully integrator, I'm not fully integrator, and we're just this chaotic combo of both. So in a way, we pull each other in the right direction constantly in all of these things. It is funny that asking for helping is quite interesting because I kind of have that pattern as well. So we're both kind of blind to it. It's a constant dance. One of my biggest epiphanies, I think, in entrepreneurship is like solo entrepreneurship is bullshit. Like we're like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, all these people like praise and like, oh, they're so genius. It's like they literally hire like 10,000 people. Like in no way, shape, form are they doing anything alone. And for me as a young entrepreneur, particularly like having that epiphany and my true confidence as an entrepreneur came when I finally got present to what I actually sucked at and admitting it, like really getting present to it. Like, I'm not good at this. Like we had a business partnership recently that the projects has been put on pause. They're like, oh, D, you can project manage it. And I was like, no, I can't. I'm not going to. I'm not going to pretend I can. And that freedom and your confidence in that as an entrepreneur, that's where the expansion comes because you can clearly say no and yes to things. You can enroll team in the gaps you have and you can build that vision and ecosystem around you. Yeah.
The memory just flashed in my head. For me, I was on, do you remember Clubhouse during pandemic days? And I was on a call with this big... Right. Remember that? This call was a guy named Eric Thomas. He's like this really big motivational speaker guy. And I got in the room and I got on the stage. I was like, oh, cool. And they called on me. And he's got this big like voice, profound, you know, like going, hey, how can I help you, brother? You know, or whatever. It's a terrible impression. And I said, you know, I'm building this coaching thing. And this is like 2019, 2020. It's like early pandemic. And I said, I'm doing it all alone. And I know I need help, but I don't know how to get help. I don't know how to let go. I don't know how to delegate shit. And the words he said to me, and I'm not going to try and use his voice because I'll do a terrible job, but he basically said, why are you so selfish? He said, you have people in the world that need the gift you have to give and you won't let them get it because you're standing in your own way. And he said, until you get to the place where you can have people do the things that you're not good at so that you can do the thing that only you can do, you'll never bring your fullness to the world. And I was like, well, shit.
I'll get off
the stage. And I've never forgotten that. Like, and now I'm at the point where I'm trying to unload as much stuff as I can to my team, but either my team doesn't have the bandwidth or I don't have a big enough team. We don't have the resources yet to build the team that I think we really need. Man, if I had a full-time person for this, man, that would be amazing, you know, or whatever. And yet it's like a constant piece of patience to temper my own expectations. Like I see the vision. But I can't push my team beyond what they're capable of doing, which is this level. And I want to kind of take this as the next level is like in this place of expansion, the thing that kind of unloads a lot of the pressure is identity.
Yes.
When you see yourself in a different energy and frequency and power, you start to carry yourself in that different power. You start to assert yourself. You start to speak different. You start to attract different kinds of people. And sales and connection and fulfillment changes. For me, at least, I want to know about you guys, like what has been like those like gear shifts? Like you said, there's been a series of things, but what, flip the switch to something completely different. Like, I'm not who I was.
It is always identity. Like the two biggest driving forces in the human condition are our identity, and then the second one is environment. And if you can become greater than your environment through really representing yourself to your identity, who you're becoming, your whole life changes. Like one level for me was the classic, and you got to be wary of like the social discourses you connect to as well. One for me that I was stuck in for years was the broke startup founder. And like we were together at the time, and Briony would like look at my bank account and look at my holy shoes and be like, why are you buying new shoes? And be like, no, because I don't know where the money's going to, and you're just stuck in that identity. Yeah. And when you really create an identity, with that comes like hundreds of beliefs and 1,000 motions and 1,000 thoughts and millions of actions, right, all around that. So we can really break that identity by having a vision that's greater than who you are. That's when everything unleashes. And even for us recently, a big shift has actually been getting away from, or for me personally, getting away from that identity of being a coach. Because actually a coach, in a way, without you even thinking about it, has a limiting factor of like, oh, it's probably one-to-one or a group, and it's probably very intimate, and it's this and that, to like, where is that all of a sudden give you a flurry of beliefs about social media, or a flurry of beliefs about sales and pricing and all your areas of business, where if you say expand, and what we get a lot of our clients to do is expanding into, no, I'm an entrepreneur and a coach and a speaker and an author. And it's like you can be this multiple of identities with those things as part of your business, particularly some business owners who maybe don't put on the CFO hat enough and bury their head in the sand and not think about finances. So when you can really play a role and understand that role, and even I had a coach once who was obsessed with totems, or he called it props, and he gets you to create a prop for every identity you need to have. So when it's finance day in your business, you literally go put on that literal hat, you know, or you're trying to do your marketing, you have a specific environment that you do that in and really create that. I'm just going on and on, but I'm obsessed with identity.
Before we continue, I want to acknowledge something important. By listening to this show, you are taking a step that many leaders are frankly unwilling to do, and that is invest in yourself. And to honor your commitment, we want to invest in you. Our research shows that elite leaders excel in 6 core areas, and we've developed a quick 2-minute assessment to help you highlight your strengths, uncover your blind spots, and see how you stack up against other top leaders. You'll get a personalized report that pinpoints the areas you can address to evolve into that next level leader. So, to see where your leadership stands, go to rankmyleadership.com. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, identity is massive. Like you can't be beyond how you perceive yourself, you know. I think there's a few things, definitely a couple of identities that really helped me grow as well. And I think identity, there's like 2 skills or tools that we use. So one is the internal creation of who you are, right? We do a lot of guided visualizations, guided meditations, journaling, you know, really getting connected to how am I relating to myself? How am I creating myself? You said about the international brand, you know, like these are ways that we have to step into these new phases and say, okay, well, if I own this part of me, what dies off as well? Yeah. There's often a grieving of, well, if you're going to step into CEO or entrepreneur, there might be that you don't do so much one-to-one coaching or direct, you know, and I think it's realizing that and constantly creating that through mental rehearsal or your language. The other thing I really love and think we underestimate is that we're created also by other people. We don't always quite know who we are or how we're perceived. And we do a lot of this in our trainings and seminars, and it was also really helpful for me. It's like, you don't get how amazing you are. In fact, you're probably doubting how amazing you are. And you can utilize your community, the right people, not anyone, but to give you feedback to mirror back how it is you're showing up for them, how they see you. Yeah. And that just elevates. And my perfect example, I've had so many moments of this, of people like mirroring how they see, and me then getting like, wow, okay, that's amazing. I flew into Finland for a speaking event, and I thought I was like part of this, like I thought I was just part of the program, let's say, like doing a keynote, 45-minute. And when we got there, I was blown away because the Finnish audience had been primed that 2 international speakers were coming, Jenny, who's American, and Briony from New Zealand. And I was like, I just got this wave of like, wow. Yeah. How I related to myself was I was just coming to do a little thing for my friend for her event. Yeah. But everyone here perceives me as like a superstar international speaker. And it was that realization that we are created by other people as well. And so using, you can go out and do a feedback exercise. What's 3 things you see about me? What's the 3 things you notice about me as my superpowers? Yeah. What's a blind spot you can't see? And in doing that, you get a lot of, let's say, affirmation and confidence as you're building your own as well. I think that's really cool. My biggest probably, I think there's been many, many identity shifts, but one was definitely the CFO, like financial investor mindset. Like I remember putting and I tell everyone to do this when they want to start investing, put like my first $5 in a shares account, and I was like, I'm an investor. And then it was just off. And one of the number one things I tell people around finances is like, you do not need to be earning 7 figures to think like a 7-figure CEO. Like you can run the ops, you can run the mindset. And I've done that from day one. Like I remember when we made like whatever, $300 in a week, and I'd do 10% my profit account, 10% my, like I acted as if it was like a lot of money. And as it grew, I had that relationship with it. So, I think, people kind of wait for this evidence outside of them to affirm it. But it's also that, you start those operating systems and those habits and those mantras or whatever you want to use, and then everything in your external reality changes as well.
So someone is listening, watching this on the interwebs right now, and they're at a crossroad where they're looking at their business, and even perhaps maybe last night they were like, screw this. And they're at overwhelm. They're at frustration levels that they haven't experienced before. Maybe they're not sleeping at night, and they're wondering about what they're capable of and what their business can do. What do you tell them?
I'm going to channel Briony right now. And something that is one of the most profound truths that Briony has always taught me and always repeatedly teaches our students is when you are 100% responsible, you have 100% power. When you're 50% responsible, you've got 50% power. So if you're feeling like you're up against it in your business, you've got all these problems, you've got all these overwhelms, and you probably find your natural state is to blame the economy, blame social media, blame the algorithm, whatever it is for your miswoes in business. But realistically, when you sit with yourself and go, I'm causing this, no one's coming to save me, I'm 100% responsible. The second you make that decision, that moment, it's like you've told the Uber driver where to pick you up, and now you can go where you want to go. Yeah. Now you can get out of it. Now you can create. Now you can solve the problems around you. But until you accept that 100% responsibility for the shit you're in, nothing's going to change. It's the Uber driver trying to figure out where you are without a pin. It doesn't work. It's horrible. It's a nightmare. Well, how would you add?
That's beautiful, right? The context that you're coming from. And the moment you have that responsibility, you have that power, you have that freedom again. And the other thing we say to each other a lot when we feel like we're just hitting our head against the wall, it's like, we know this. Insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. And so you've got to get radically honest that maybe your strategies, your mindset, wherever you're at, it's not producing the result you want. And it doesn't mean you're not good enough and you can't do it and you're never going to get there. That's a narrative around it. It just means that you definitely don't have the right system right now for the results you want to produce. And when I get to points like that in my life, or when people come to us and they're in that space, it's like being like an investigator. It's like really looking at what you've been doing, what's producing the result, right? It might be 20% of what you're doing that's working really well. And when people are really burnt out and frustrated and overwhelmed, it it feels like it's everything. I get that. I know it feels like it's everything because that's the emotional energy you're in, and that annoys you, and they annoy you, and this isn't working, and nothing's working, and that's where you've gone. And so unfortunately your entire perspective gets blurred and it feels like it's everything. But the quicker you can isolate like what's going on and what's causing it, oh my gosh. And sometimes if you're super overwhelmed, you're going to need someone to help you do that, like a coach or a mentor or a friend. If you've well practiced at this, you might be able to get yourself to that objective emotional state. But I often find with things like that, it's sometimes really small. Like we're talking like, I'm so sick of doing this thing every day. It's like, okay, let's outsource that. Or, you know, for some people it's bigger. They feel like they've not got enough profit from their company for the last year. They feel resentful towards their company and customers. Cool. Bigger conversation, new strategy. But I think that's difficult to do on your own when you're over emotional and your whole perspective's been blurred. So getting regulated again, getting your nervous system regulated so you can kind of isolate the challenge, you know, and Dee's been my forever person for this. I'm lucky, you know, but if you're too much caffeine, too much stimulation, too much input, you're not going to be able to see what's really going on. Yeah.
Glad you brought up regulation.
Yeah.
Because it's something that you and I throw around, but we never really fully talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's that classic notion of, one is like your emotions come first. There's always been this stigma around like thought, emotion, thought, like nature, nurture. What is it? I personally believe that emotions come first and then it's the thought. So that's why, like, when, say, some of our clients get on a call and they're freaking out and stressed out, it's like you are dysregulated, you are disconnected, you need to change your environment, change your state. Like, it's the only way to do this. And it's an interesting one as well when a lot of us stare at our computer screens trying to solve our problems, when in fact it's like, no, the best way for you to do and to solve this problem is to change your environment. So get off Zoom, close the laptop, and go somewhere you haven't been before, whether it's a cafe or a walk or just do the loop. And it's the classic thing is the idea comes, the solution comes 9 times out of 10. When you just change your habit, change the loop, break the routine, you find that the problem is solved. My favorite simple one-liners here is like, climb to the top of the hill, meditate, get the idea, make a plan as you walk down, and when you get to the bottom, get to work. And that's usually how you can solve most of your problems, is not by staring at your laptop and getting regulated, whatever that is for you, whether it's walking, exercise, meditate, hug a tree, I don't know, whatever you need to regulate.
I believe this, that to the degree you can go to one direction is like a polarity, that you have the ability to go the opposite direction as well. So when you have the ability to fail or to fall hard, and like if you've been through really, really hard things in your life, like to that same degree, you have the ability to go to a place of success, abundance, overflow, source, and supply, right? And when we get into those like critical situations, usually there's an insight or a perspective that, I loved what you said, like we want to blame, we want to push off the responsibility, but when we take the responsibility is also to take that power to then say, I got here, I can get out of here too.
Yeah.
That's that polarity, is like, I did something, maybe I wasn't thinking right, maybe I wasn't believing right, maybe I made some mistakes, maybe I wasn't, keeping up my sales pipeline, blah, blah, blah. And I'm making a choice to do something. And I think that's something unique about the species of entrepreneurs, is that we have the ability to see ourselves in a place of power to be able to change our environment.
Yep.
And a lot of other people, and if you just want to take a paycheck and go get a job, I mean, no shame, no blame, no shade on you. It's just a different thinking. And this species of entrepreneur is could be perceived as a recluse, could be perceived as crazy, as perceived as, and sometimes we feel like we are. And yet, like, we wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you read Driven by Douglas Brackman? It's so good. I used to always think my brother's like government, like safest thing you could possibly do. And I always used to put that perception on him that like he was the scared one and he was the one like not taking risks in life and all that jazz. And when you read Driven, you realize the entrepreneurs are. We're the ones that think we'll never have enough money, never have enough freedom, never have enough time. And I was like, oh my God, I have anxiety. I don't know I had anxiety. What is this?
Yeah. But he calls us the driven ones.
Yes.
So it's good. It is good.
And in that drive, it's that place of that darkness when you hit that wall, it's an invitation.
Mm.
Like what we don't realize that everything that's coming upon us, we've asked for.
Mm.
We want this dream, this vision, this desire. And when the universe comes and brings things to us and we see them as detrimental, we see them as like I failed, or we see them as like, no. The universe is like chipping away at your Michelangelo, it's chipping away at your David.
Yeah.
And it's finessing things and it's giving you a new insight and a new perspective. It's like, this was pride. This was ego. This is your, impatience. This was ... And you gain wisdom and insight, and that becomes the advantage for your future.
Yeah.
And it's like every time we hit our head against that thing, it's instead of feeling like we've lost and we're a failure and we suck, instead we should celebrate and like,
yeah,
I'm about to go to a new level.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I get a little emotional about this. I wrote this. This is what I wrote. Actually, this is part journal. This is my notes for our talk today. But I wrote over here, it says, I'm entering a new stage. Shift energy to receiving abundance. Ground myself in who I am and what I want. Leverage AI in all areas of my business. How do I live and make things easier, lighter, and more profitable?
Yes.
When you asked that question.
I asked that question because I was facing a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the shift. It's like when we choose in those moments, and then this is the thing, it is a choice.
It is.
We either choose to like step into our power and go into creation mode, or we miss the opportunity because we just want to stay in the shadow.
The crazy thing around that, like even psychologically, is our brains are addicted to the familiar. And we think like, oh no, why would I want to keep doing this negative thing? I don't like it. But the brain knows no different. The brain just gives you a dopamine hit every single time you do that negative habit. Every single time you hit Netflix on and goes, boom, your brain's getting a hit from that rather than writing a LinkedIn post or doing something for your business. And when you really connect to that and realize that, again, that responsibility piece is I have to break my patterns because or else I'm just going to keep stuck in this constant loop of the same.
I think a lot of people, like you were saying, they hang on to that because it's known. It's what they know. And there's not much required, like on an energetic level. I mean, it's painful long term, but there's not much required in terms of generative energy. The moment you declare, I'm going to do something about this, I'm going to change, I think the terrifying thing for a lot of human beings is we don't actually know how. Like, you don't have the whole game plan then, because the game plan comes, the insights come once your decision is made. Everyone wants to know, but is it going to work? Is it going to be, how's it all going to play out? You don't get to know that until you decide that you're in the game, right? Once you're in the game, then the clarity comes and you take more action and more insights come. But so many people will not put something at stake unless it's like a guaranteed return, and that's why they get no more evolution, no more abundance, because they're not really in the game of life. And when you're really playing in the game of life, you put something at stake, you're on the line, you don't know how it's going to unfold, but you're willing to, be playing. I think it's a better way to live, but it takes something.
It does. It takes.
Yeah. It's like, it's unknown. You're like, man, like this could all go wrong, but let's play and let's see what else. You're up against yourself, and you're up against, the body loves to stay safe. I mean, we've got that wired in, that homeostasis. It just wants to stay right where it's comfortable.
When I first moved here, I had a number of people who like send me notes, or, we got in calls and they'd be like, how did you do it? How did you move to Portugal? How'd you move your family to Portugal? And I was like, well, I filed for a D7 visa and I got the paper. And truth be known, I didn't do this. This was my wife did all this. Let's be clear. And they were like, no, that's not what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you do it? And it was like a light bulb went off. I'm like, oh, this is a different conversation. You mean, how did I let go of my friendship circles? How did I let go of the identity of being an American? Mind you, North American, as I've learned, that we co-opted America from the South American, North America, Central America. They're all Americas. Hello. Instead of like hanging on and being safe, you were able to decouple yourself from your environment, decouple yourself from your social status, decouple yourself from the identity of your nationalistic whatever. Like, these are these things that, to me, it never even crossed my mind. Like, it wasn't a big shift. It was like, oh, my mom raised me to grab a backpack and go see the world. And I did that all throughout my 20s. And then in 2014, my wife and I, we said we were going to sell our house and move. And my wife says, well, who says we have to move somewhere? Like, I was in the space of peer-to-peer and Airbnb and all these different, Uber and Lyft were all coming onto the scene. And so we just rented places a month at a time all over the United States and Aruba, and for a whole year. And these are all perspectives that cause you to step out of those comfort zones. And it's almost as if you have to flex a muscle. And the first time you get in the gym, wow, 2 days later, you are so sore. I never knew I had those muscles, right? And then you just learn how to flex that muscle a little bit more and more. And it gets stronger and stronger. And these different areas of our business, our character, our nature, our self-regulation, our sense of abundance, like all those are muscles.
Yeah.
It's interesting you bring this up, because Briony and I were talking the other day about writing our books, and similar conversation, right? Of like, everything takes energy, everything is a muscle. And it's like, do you remember once upon a time when writing something on social media was like a day, almost a week-long event of like editing the caption, finding the right, and it was such a big deal. And now it's just like, oh, that's a cool idea, boop, boom, post, right? Yeah. Or send it off to the marketing person, whatever is in your business. Yeah. And it's that constant reminder as an entrepreneur and as life is everything at a moment, there's a level of resistance because the brain goes, I haven't done this before, I don't want to do this. And the second you just like do it, it's easy. So how can you almost be delusional and collect evidence for yourself on that new thing you want to do? And it's a super important game, because we have like so many rules in our life. And one of my favorite distinctions is actually from Big Tones, Tony Robbins. And he talks about rules and how we make it super easy to feel bad and like a failure, and super hard to feel good and make simple, big life decisions, right? We make it such a big deal. But it's like, how can you make it easy? How can you choose a belief or create something that makes those changes in your life a no-brainer? How can you choose a belief that enrolls you in whatever lifestyle you want? Like, say, for me, I love the vision of moving and traveling and moving around, right? So I've adopted a belief that the secret to a long life is change. Yeah. So how can I keep creating change? How can I keep moving and changing myself and evolving? And through doing that, I'm going to live a very long and extraordinary life.
Yeah, I think the other distinction that's really powerful that we use a lot, if you're thinking about, a lot of people tend to have maybe one or two areas that they're like really rocking or really succeeding in. And, it's like, I'm an amazing career person, or, incredibly healthy, let's say. Let's choose a couple of areas. And I think what we forget is like, you created that. So success leaves clues. This is the distinction. So if you're trying to create a breakthrough in your life in a new area, let's say you really want to evolve financially or in your love life, or
move abroad with your family.
Yeah, move abroad. Exactly. Look at an area that you've created success in and find out how and why. Instead of taking advice from every single person on the internet about how they did it, look at your own strategy. And that's just self-awareness and reflection. So for me, like I know myself. I do really well with accountability. I respond so well with a coach, with active accountability. I can show up, right? I love learning. So if I'm given a blueprint, perfect, like something that's easy to follow and actionable. So like figure out from a place that you've created a breakthrough, how you did that. Find your success strategy and then just map that across. So if you want to break through in finance, it's like, I always know I need community. I need a few good mentors. I need a program to follow. Great. Like, I think that's a really helpful piece as well when you're trying to, And I mean, I shared this on social media the other day, but I was like, I don't try and take on every area at once. Like, I keep every area of my life in check. Like, you know, we do our little audits and catch-ups, but we often, if we want to transform something, we commit to it for like 3 to 6 months. So we're like, health, let's go. 3 to 6 months. All I learn, all we consume, all we share, and that gives our brain and body enough time to really adjust into that, and then integrate that into identity, and then move to the next area. That's been hugely helpful, because otherwise I think it's, if you love learning, it's a lot of information all at once.
And that perfect system, what you're talking about, is finding that one area you're really good at.
Yeah.
Keep doing it. Like, it's such a good annualized reflection, and it's your way of finding what you're naturally good at. Because one of my biggest pet peeves is when people are sharing, their productivity hacks, or how they grow, or how they moved overseas, or how they did the thing. It's like, they're sharing what works for them with their specific way of thinking and their specific beliefs. Like, I don't know if you resonate, but I wanted to join the 5 a.m. club my entire adult life. And I am not a 5 a.m. person. And it used to bug me so much. But it was just that line, like, no, they've found what works for them productively. Me, 10 hours sleep. That's how I am productive, So it's really like knowing thyself and creating that perfect system on one area you're really good at, and then mapping it over to another. Game changing. Yeah. Absolute game changer.
Yeah, it's cool.
Oh, gosh. I've just chat with you guys forever. This is so great. So I want to bring this in for a landing. And I want to take it from, where we started was this place of expansion. Oh, yes. Right. So if you guys were to flash forward 3 years from now, who are you?
I think I'm still Dalaney Davis.
Yeah.
I Vicro Iglesias.
The identities I'm evolving into. One is an author, and that is, we've run a lot of amazing programs and trainings and things over the years, and I want to document that into a resource that people can get anytime, anywhere, when I'm off doing my own things. So one is an author, and that's a new journey, and I need a coach and a strategy and all the things I know I need. Another is to be an amazing wife and an awesome mother. These are things that I'm evolving into. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be me. I think still sharing. I think I used to always laugh saying, I honestly think I'd still be coaching when I'm like 70, but sharing the wisdom in a new way, making more time for me and our family, and evolving into the next chapter. So that's me. A few years.
Same.
Well, yeah.
Right. Really to be an author, be an amazing husband, be an amazing father. And to be honest, it's such a simple question for us, because it's that next chapter of life, Yeah. And it's interesting reflecting on that like father piece and stuff, and realize I had this epiphany the other day around like purpose, and particularly young men who are purposeless. Sure. I was like, that's because human history has changed. For the first time, we're having children so much later. Yeah. But all of a sudden, there was a point where, boom, you had to provide, and that motivation kicked on. Because every single friend I have that have kids is like, you just wait. You're going to be so motivated, you won't even know what to do with it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm excited. Author, father, husband, speaker, awesome, cool human. Yeah.
If it helps, my first book got done because we were expecting.
Oh.
I was like, I gotta get that shit done. All right. And I was that 5 a.m. guy only for that season, just so I could write. And then, that was a crazy season. And now I'm in the middle of book number 3.
Wow.
And I did get a coach, and like you, I need someone who can like stare into my beady eyes and say, I need you to do this. And I'm like, no problem. I got it. I'll do it. Like, as long as somebody's like calling me up and calling me out, like, I'm in. But if it's just like, oh, I'll get to it. Like my ADD kicks in, or like I can easily get distracted. And so I have so much empathy and compassion for what we do, because we know the service that we provide for others in that same capacity. Shout out to Caillou, my fitness coach. It's like, I'm starting to get these little lumps, around my body in really cool ways. I never had pectoral muscles before. And it's all a product of being able to pay some guy a shit ton of money and have him beat me like a child. That's terrible. That's not politically correct at all. He beats me up in the gym, and I walk out exhausted and sweaty, and I'm like, that was amazing.
Yeah.
And I get sore and then I go back for more.
Yeah.
And yet it's in that consistency that you see progress. And the more I'm doing this element of my own, fitness journey, it's like I'm making these references of building muscles. It's like I'm seeing there's so much correlation of discipline and consistency. And then what do you actually want, right? Because that's the foremost. What are you trying to create? And I want to be chasing my grandkids and being able to lift them up over my head. I want to push them on the swings. I want to be able to play with my kids as long as possible. I want to be doing what I'm doing until I breathe my last breath. I don't really want to retire. Retirement sounds like a really bad proposition to me. I need purpose.
You got to watch out that identity that comes with retirement, right? It's sitting.
Use it a little.
I want to be in that place of, meaning and contribution and continuing to add to the world. So with that, you guys, thank you so much for being a part. Thank you guys for being you.
Thank you.
The power and inspiration you bring.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
As we wrap up another episode of Evolve Leadership, thank you so much for taking time to invest in you. If there's to be any sustainable growth in your company or even in your relationships, you must grow first. And it's what I love to do for leaders, to help them grow, to challenge their thinking, sharpen self-awareness, to instill an unshakable confidence, and ultimately upgrade their sense of self. And we do this through our proprietary method called Agile EQ Plus, where we're leveraging agile leadership and emotional intelligence. We provide our signature training for individuals, and for businesses, we've designed a unique curriculum for company-wide learning and development. If you'd like to learn more about our training or to schedule a call, you can simply go to evolveleadership.org. And until next time, stay driven, keep climbing, and never stop evolving.